Our conventional view of finance and sustainability is misleading. The triangle of economics, society, and environment obscures the inherent mechanics of our financial system. The system is, in fact, acting as an attractor in the center of a funnel, pulling our society towards a good or bad, sustainable or unsustainable outcome. Indeed, money itself is not a neutral veil. Instead, it dynamically attracts or repels a sustainable future. The current monetary system is not simply a device which measures the price of goods and services. It is a system which distorts and counteracts all commitments towards a common future right from the beginning by favoring short-term thinking and a pro-cyclical tendency. Its bias is towards a movement which destroys social capital and emphasizes the disparity between income and wealth. We believe we can do better. Indeed, we must do better. We can redesign and restructure the system to finance a future we can all share. Traditionally, it's clear that development needs have been financed through private sector funding, conventional public sector expenditure, and philanthropic commitment. Yet these sources are neither adequate in scale nor velocity if we are to meet the pressing financial demands. The world community is already stretched to its limits, repairing, stabilizing, and refunding the financial system. We are so devoted to the myriad of repairs that we cannot guarantee the future safety and stability of the building itself. Many would argue that we have sufficient liquidity and cash on the capital market. While this may be true for private capital, only 1/3 of sustainable development goals are eligible for private investment. The remaining 66% requires a different monetary approach, an approach where public agents are installed to ensure our common goods. We should avoid privatizing our world with private money. The dangers are clear. In a fully privatized world, even fresh air supply might be in the hands of the few and rationed according to the willingness, or worse, the ability to pay. It's worth remembering, on a global scale, around 80% of all assets are already in private hands, and commons, chronically underfunded, are not a market failure, rather a prerequisite of a functioning market. They generate a return on investment 5 to 10 times higher than private revenues. So, how can we solve this unpleasant problem? One example particularly demonstrates this: the difference between investing in a pork farm or in preschooling. Central banks generate money for the commercial banking sector, which, in turn, provides a credit line to the pork farm. The pork farm itself is taxed to fund our commons. Preschooling as a common is therefore funded by private taxes, fees, and philanthropy. Education contributes numerous positive effects within our communities, such as a reduced crime rate, costs for social exclusion, the birth rate, and welcome impacts on income, wealth, and health, as well as on the environment. However, education is chronically underfunded despite its high return on investment. The negative spillovers of the pork farm example, including global warming, health-related issues, water pollution, and subsidies, in time will damage the community as a whole. This negative compilation of effects generates a Pareto inferior equilibrium for all of us. On the one hand, we favor market-guided solutions. We start to internalize the entire costs of the pork farm within a total cost analysis. If a company decides to farm and process pork, it must cover the costs of that business model. And if that company wishes to export pork systemically, it must provide for all the associated costs and externalities involved. At the same time, subsidies and taxation will be reduced accordingly. This disentanglement will allow free price formation and allocation following competitive private market principles. Conversely, we finance our preschooling policies using a different financial mechanism. Central banks provide the adequate budget through a digital parallel currency, earmarked and processed via a distributive ledger technology. The exact amount is delivered through public developing banks, from the construction company building the kindergarten to the colleges training the nurses. If both the pork farm and the preschooling succeed, we as a community amass greater wealth, encourage better health, and the unsustainable weight on the environment is lifted, resulting in a world equipped for a sustainable future. In economic terms, this is an example of a Pareto superior equilibrium. What if an asteroid hit Europe and destroyed 10% of its infrastructure? Would we tax the 90% remaining to rebuild the 10%? We should not. In the private sphere, we can only spend what we have earned in the first place, or considering a credit line, what we eventually repay. The public purse is not the private purse. Governments with a convertible currency do not have any budget constraints, nor can they go bankrupt. They simply create the money necessary to finance their agendas. The government does not need our money, but we do need the government to provide the liquidity to finance our future. The limitation to this money creation process is not the amount of money, but the human and natural resources the government has access to. And if we replace the example of an asteroid with challenges inherent in global warming, future pandemics, and the extinction of entire species, we have no choice but to calculate and generate the amount of money required to address them before it's literally too late. The question is simple. Are future generations really better off with an extended balance sheet of central banks, which have adequately financed our commons, rather than a solution where the central banks remain within their traditional mandates of neutrality while the world is destroyed?